She tried to kick a black man out of business class without realizing he owned the entire airline. Flight attendant Shannon Briggs humiliated David Langston, calling security, threatening arrest, and accusing him of fraud. But she had no idea. He was the CEO of the plane she was standing on. By the time they touched down, careers were destroyed, and the skies would never be the same. The business class cabin of Unity Air Flight 304 buzzed with the routine sounds of boarding. Luggage shifting, seatbelts clicking, polite small talk. In seat 2A sat David Langston, a tall, sharply dressed black man in his mid-40s, adjusting the cuffs of his understated navy suit. To most, he looked like a quiet professional traveling for work. What no one knew, yet, was that he wasn't just a passenger. He was the founder and CEO of Unity Air. David had declined priority boarding and intentionally booked his seat under a generic alias. He wanted no red carpet, no recognition, just a front-row seat to the real experience, the kind his black and brown passengers had been complaining about for years. Enter Shannon Briggs, the lead flight attendant. Blonde, efficient, in her early 40s, with a clipboard clutched like a badge of power. The moment she laid eyes on David, her entire demeanor shifted. "Excuse me, sir," she said curtly, leaning over his row. "This is business class." David looked up calmly. "Yes, I know. I need to see your boarding pass." No welcome aboard. No smile. Just suspicion. David handed her the pass. She examined it like it was forged. Nearby passengers watched, eyebrows raised. A white man in 2C sipped champagne without interruption. An older white woman in 1A had been offered assistance with her bag. David? He was being scanned like a problem. Finally, Shannon spoke. "This appears to be in order. For now." David didn't flinch. He tapped open his notes app and typed, 6:47 p.m. Initial contact. Suspected of not belonging. Shannon returned minutes later again without request. "If you're more comfortable, we do have room in economy," she offered, voice syrupy with fake concern. "I'm perfectly fine where I am," David replied. But inside, he was boiling. This wasn't customer service. This was containment. When he asked for a glass of water, Shannon informed him beverage service wouldn't begin until cruising altitude. Right after handing a glass of wine to 2C. Then came the questions. How did you purchase your ticket? Do you fly with us often? Are you part of a rewards program? What do you do for work? And then, unbelievably, what was your annual income last year? The cabin froze. The man in 2C shifted. The woman in 1A looked appalled. A young black woman in 3D stopped mid-text, her phone subtly recording. David leaned back, steel in his voice. "I don't believe that question is appropriate." Shannon's smile dropped. She stormed to the galley, returning with Mart Adler, the onboard cabin manager. Gray hair, permanent scowl. He didn't ask for David's name. Didn't ask what happened. He pointed. "Sir, we've received reports that you may be occupying a seat without proper authorization. Please gather your belongings and move to economy." David remained still. "I have my boarding pass." "Anyone can print one of those," Shannon snapped. "You're being removed for fraud." Fraud. The word exploded like a gunshot. Phones came out. Recording started. David glanced at his phone. A message from his assistant. "Legal team standing by. Crisis protocol prepped." He typed back. "Let it play out." Then came the final insult. Mark radioed the captain and announced a code orange. Unity Air's highest-level cabin alert, usually reserved for terrorism or violence. David sat motionless, calm, but the fire in his chest was white-hot. Then the cabin door opened. Captain Elena Cruz, flanked by 2 officers, stepped into the aisle. "Where is the passenger in question?" When she saw David, she froze. "Mr. Langston?" Gasps rippled through the plane. Shannon went pale. Mark stammered. "Captain, he—" "Silence," Elena snapped. "You just tried to remove the owner of this airline from his own seat." Cameras caught every second. Shannon's face collapsed. Mark dropped his clipboard. David stood slowly, calm, composed, unstoppable. "I built Unity Air from nothing," he said. 15 years, thousands of jobs, billions in impact. And today, I sat quietly, like so many of our passengers, only to be profiled, interrogated, and nearly arrested for existing in the wrong skin in the wrong seat. The businessman in 2C stood and clapped. So did the woman in 1A. The young woman in 3D was crying. David turned to Shannon and Mark. "Pack your bags. You won't fly under my name again." The plane erupted in quiet awe. No yelling, no swearing, just power. Undeniable, earned, and absolute. By the time they landed, legal was waiting, termination papers ready, a press conference scheduled, and a new company policy drafted on David's laptop mid-flight. Zero tolerance for bias, for humiliation, for injustice in the skies. Unity Air would never be the same again. And neither would the people who thought they could judge a man by the color of his skin instead of the size of his vision. If that story hit you deep, drop a comment, tell us where you're watching from, smash that like, share it with someone who needs to see it, and subscribe for more real, raw stories that expose truth and flip the script.